Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and wherever you are viewing us from in the world. It is Tuesday, the 9th of June. Welcome to Pep Talks in the Morning. My name is Felicia Holder, the chairman of the Progressive Empowerment Party, and your host of this program every Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. This morning, we are doing a two-part interview series, and you can expect to see more like these occurring as we lead up to the next general elections, where we bring on some of our caretakers for some of our 41 constituencies, as well as prospective candidates to represent the Progressive Empowerment Party. This morning, we are very fortunate to get the hard to get Mr. Rondell Glasgow, who is the caretaker of Labray. Rondell, who usually works around this time, is fortunately available to be interviewed with us today. And let us please welcome Mr. Rondell Glasgow onto the program. Did we lose Rondell? It seems like we've lost Rondell. Let me check and see. So as it seems, Rondell is having some technical difficulties, which is actually the reason why we started this program a few minutes later than scheduled. Rondell is supposed to come on this morning and do a 1 hour interview with me discussing all of the work that he is doing within his constituency. I'm going to see if Master Control can dispatch him in. In the meantime, please feel free to share the live video, and we welcome Rondell onto the program. Good morning, Mr. Rondell Glasgow. I thought you ditched just
Good
for a second there.
morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Felicia Holder. I'm so very happy to be here.
Rondell, you're a little off center, and I'm assuming that's because you have two screens visible. You need to click the rectangle so that it disappears and center yourself on the main camera right now, because you're off camera at the moment. So turn the camera a little. Next direction.
All right.
Next direction.
Are we good here?
No, next. Yes, perfect. A little bit more. A little bit more.
All right. I seem like such a tech dinosaur.
You're good there. Let's stop there. Don't touch your camera for the rest of the program. However you see yourself, that's fine. We see you just perfect. Rondell, good morning again, and welcome to Pep Talks in the Morning. It is finally good to have you joining us on the program.
Look, it's so amazing to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here this morning. Thank you so much for all of your efforts and getting me here this morning. I'm very, very happy to be here, and I have a lot to say, but you are the interviewer, so I await.
Indeed, and I promise to go as easy on you as our local reporters, which means I'm going to let you go completely. Of course not, because this is the Progressive Empowerment Party, and we do more due diligence than that. So, Rondell Glasgow, let us start a very easy question. Please tell the public a little bit about yourself. Rondell Glasgow, first time on the program. Some people may know you from Facebook as the Pep Caretaker for Labray. Some people may know you within your own constituency. But for the public and the audience, and the international audience in particular, who look on to this show with much curiosity, please let the audience and the public know, who is Rondell Glasgow? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So Rondell Glasgow is a person who represents a normal and standard man. And I intend to bring that to this party, and I intend to bring that to the fore, because for far too long, we've had people who, they're little people with very big egos, they try to separate themselves from just being a normal human being. I mean, all of us, we have to go to the grocery, we have to go to the market, we have to drive on the same road, we have to face the same issues with WASA. I mean, we are all the same. We're in the same boat. In the same boat, and I don't want to appear as though I'm better than anybody or bigger than anybody. I am a normal human being, a relatable human being, and that is the kind of politics I wish to bring.
Very, very well said. I know you're also a family man and you welcomed a baby into the world, another
Yes,
baby,
yes.
about what, 2 months ago? Congratulations again on
Thank you so
that.
much. I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 2-month-old son. Yes. I'm
So you have
married, I'm
perfect.
27 years old, certainly.
You're married.
But
Sorry, what's that?
yes, I'm married and I'm 27 years old. Usually those two don't go hand in hand.
Indeed, you don't see much young men settling under 30, 35 years old. So kudos to you for settling down and congratulations on your very beautiful. And I know your daughter very well. And well, I have yet to meet your son, but I know I can attest that you have a very beautiful little family. Rondell, you were part of our hamper distribution drive back in April, May, and you actually worked the constituency helping us deliver hampers to people within your community, within your constituency and environment. What was that experience like for you? That was at the height of the COVID-19 shutdown. Most people were at home. Many people were out of jobs. What was that experience like for you being a part of that hamper distribution drive?
So, I mean, there are few words that could express the kind of satisfaction you get as a human being knowing that you're able to help another human being. But it goes to a further degree. It goes to, I mean, an entirely different realm and a different depth when you actually work the constituency, as you said, because, I mean, people think that they know what everybody else is going through. And that's not true because every man thinks his pulse is the heaviest. You know, when I go through my constituencies in South and I see the degree of, I mean, is abject squalor we talking about? You know, we're talking about people living in situations where I think before COVID, you know what I mean, there was under some strain. And now COVID just made it, I mean, these stringent government policies made it even worse and so difficult to live and to be, I mean, to have an opportunity to assist people at that particular time. I mean, there's nothing that could take that away from me, regardless of politics, regardless of wherever I see myself in the near future. I mean, just to be able to assist people seriously in a situation where they had no assistance and they felt like there was nobody to turn to, that is gold and I will stay with me until I die. And actually, I'm just very, very appreciative of the Progressive Empowerment Party for allowing me to really take up that role. I mean, I'm a natural provider, that's what I do. And I'm just so happy that I was afforded this opportunity to do a little bit more provided, you know?
Indeed, and I as well, as a person who was spearheading that drive, I thank you for your commitment, your work. I know you drove to some areas that were even outside of your immediate community to assist, and I really have to thank you because, like I said, that was the height of COVID-19 where most people were trying to stay home, yet you were one of the people driving around your vehicle to assist those who were in need. Yesterday, Rhonda, we spoke, and you told me that a lot of people reach out to you in your community, probably just as much or even more so than the MP of your area. Did you experience during COVID-19 people reaching out to you for assistance with the salary relief grants? Did you hear
Of
anything
course.
from the
So
people?
of course. I think, you know, people that say this kind of thing, fake it till they make it. So I try
Mhm.
to provide as many services as I possibly can in my own capacity. And the truth is, there are a lot of people that can't function at a particular level. There are some people that simply don't understand the forms. There are some people that simply can't read, and I would, when people call and they ask for assistance with filling out the forms and that kind of thing, I mean, there's not a problem. I go and I assist them and I show them what means what, and assist them in whatever ways that I can, show them where to sign, how to sign, what they need to put in place. But before COVID, I was doing that. I mean, there are a lot of people who could have tested a house burning down. So this is a normal thing. Every dry season in Library, at least 6 houses burn every dry season. That's because we don't have a
Oh,
fire station in Library. Right? So at least 6 houses, at least. And usually the fire victims, instead of even trying to reach out to the member of parliament, they would call me because they think that I have some kind of link or what have you. You know how that
you have a
goes.
fire
But
truck in your
it's,
backyard?
huh?
They think you have a fire truck in your backyard?
I don't know. But you see, that's the truth about helping people. And that's why I've taken up this journey is about helping people. It's not about helping yourself and the people that you know. With that entire hamper distribution thing that you brought up earlier, I had it had partners calling me, asking me, "Hey, was you seen by? How come you ain't check me with a hamper? What going on? I hear you giving out hampers and saying, how come you ain't check me?" But it's not about that. It's not about if you're my partner and if I know you. It's not about that. It's about the people who under the most significant strain. They reach out to me and I just reach right back out to them. And that's how it is. It's not a friend thing. We've gotten so used to this friend thing. I'm a partner, get you here, I'm a partner, get you there, so you go organize that. It's not about that. We are ensuring that the people who need it most get the assistance that they need. And that's what it's about.
Well said. You're saying that you are involved in your community, and I know, Rhonda, that you would have partook in several walkabouts in your community. I saw the pictures and the videos, some of which we have to show in just a short while on the program. Can you tell me some of the work that you're doing right now on the ground in Labrie?
Okay, so there's no point to me, um, yeah, there's no point to me saying, here's what, I wish to represent a political party, I wish to run for government office, and I'm not doing anything. What's the point of the title if the title doesn't do something? So I work with some of the youths in the area, um, Rancho, Palo Seco, Saparia, Vancouver. I do martial arts classes. I teach maths, English, French, information technology, biology. I also help out in 3 of the homes. One is a home for battered women. There's opposite Coronation Park. And I mean, I just try my best to get as involved as I possibly can because there's no way that I could speak and represent everybody with my words if I don't know everybody, if I don't have a finger on the pulse of what exactly takes place in the community. So I do my best to be here, there, and everywhere.
I have heard that from your mouth as well as some people who I've met who said, particularly when we had that meeting last year, I think they said, yeah, they told that guy who came and knock on my door and sit down in my gallery and talk to me. Yes, I gather that you are a very friendly person who would sit down and have lengthy conversations with people about the PEP and what you're doing in the Progressive Empowerment Party. And I am certain that along the way, and being a resident of the community and the constituency, I'm sure you can tell me what are some of the major issues facing your community and by extension your constituency of Labrie.
So the root of that is neglect because I could list the list goes on and on and on and on, but the root of it all is neglect. Imagine I just said a constituency that holds more than 50,000 residents does not have a functioning fire station, I just told you that every dry season, at least 6 houses burn flat to the ground. Does that make any sense at all? It does not. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it can't make sense to any logical thinking human being. But besides that, in my entire constituency, there isn't one bank, not one. We have 3 ATMs, if you count one in our empty station. So, because of that, the economic stimulation that could have come with our bank is not there. I mean, besides that, water woes, traffic woes, bad road woes, you name it, we have it here. Crime, we have a border that is so porous that somebody could float over on a lily pad and enter my country through my constituency. And they say that that country is failing, and yet they are able to protect their borders. Because every year, I could tell you, there are fishermen that get shot dead in the water by the Gwalia trying to go into their waters. So which country is truly failing? How come they could protect their borders, but we can't? I live in a constituency with over 7 beaches. And you could count on one hand the amount of tourism that attracts. And it has nothing to do with the beauty of the beaches. But like I was talking about before, the road, the access points to get to there. You see, roads facilitate trade. And I was there. When I was 9 years old, I know to beat a pan and corral and make a whole fuss for the road and burn tires and all that kind of thing. But the truth is, all that did was add to the stigma that we have here in Labre. Them Labre people don't want nothing. Them Labre people and them, they're too boisterous, they're too loud. And at the end of the protest and at the end of the marches, we got nothing. And now I'm in a place after being guided by the Progressive Empowerment Party where I understand something. Sometimes, before you can take a stand, first, you need to take a seat.
I hope some people get what that quote that you just said there, because it resonates very very deeply with me. And I mean, it flows into this next question that I have for you, Rhonda, which is Labre has been known as a PNM stronghold for the longest while, yet you say that you have all of these issues. You say that the people of your community have protested, they have beat drums and marched. Labre is home to the world's largest pitch lake, and yet you complain about the world's worst roads. What is it? And maybe you can't answer this question for everybody, and it may be unfair to ask you to answer this question for everybody. But being a resident of Labre, what is it about the PNM that they continue to hold? I don't want to say continue to hold, because since your arrival and since the advent of the Progressive Empowerment Party, I have to say I'm seeing people seeing the sense in life. But what is it about the PNM that they is it that they like the is it that they like the no water and the bad roads? What is it? And how are you working to change that?
So this is the actual issue that I found out through my walkabout. When I spoke to ex-PNM councillors and ex-PNM member of parliament and so on and so forth, the thing is, they never had the support of the community. Yes, they would win the election, but they would win on the strength of the PNM. So they themselves could not rally the support of Labre. And this is why, when they stood in parliament and they asked for something and they were shot down, they could not go back to the community and say, here's what. They say we can't get this in it. Can we try this? Can we try something else? You see, they didn't have the support of the people on the ground. So when they spoke, they only spoke as themselves. For example, we have a $300 million port in Labrie that's doing basically nothing. I mean, Solotans came probably twice. More or less that's it, right? So we have a $300 million port just sitting there doing nothing. The idea passed was to build a dry dock to assist with that. It would stimulate the activities at the port and what have you and what have you. They had that plan without addressing us. Because to come now and build this, we would be losing two beaches. We would be losing a jetty. We would be losing an entire fishing village. We'd be losing houses that stood in Labrie for more than 100 years. And we are not in support of that. Carrot Beach was built by the people of Labrie. The government didn't assist at all. You could thank the people that came together and out of pocket all of the bricks and all of the mortar and all of the steel work that made that beautiful beach. I should take some pictures of that beach to show you how nice it is. And you talking about you want to come and demolish that? I mean, they've never made us part of the conversation and just made rash decisions without us and without the support of the people on the ground, without the support of the people that you represent. You are just one man standing in parliament against 40 others who have their people's support.
Noted. So, based on this, what has been the response to you in Labrie so far on the ground?
Thank God. So far, so far, I mean, my ex primary school teacher, my ex secondary school principal, everybody so far has been saying thank God because what they say is what I say. I've been saying, unless somebody who is actually from the area, who grew up in the area, who knows the people of the area, goes to parliament and speaks on our behalf, nothing will change. They can't expect anything to change because they're not from here. They don't understand here. So the response has been excellent. I mean, there are parts of the constituency where, my name, I have a few names, but there are parts of the constituency where my name didn't reach yet. So in my walk about I'm going in places that's strange. I'm not going in my hometown. Everybody don't know me already. You know what I mean? I'm going in strange parts of the constituency. In fact, I've moved. Now my constituency is large, right? There's actually a whole forest reserve that separates my constituency into two. People actually think it's two constituencies, but it's one. It's just a very large landmass. I've moved because I lived on one half for all my life, and a year ago, I moved to the other half so that I could understand the constituency properly. So when I speak, it's not just for one half. I understand it intimately. It's called it going over the border. So when I went over the border and talking to people, remember it's orange. So Tanti up on a hill see the orange and thought she saw red. Tanti said, hey, don't come here. Don't come here. And I mean, I'm good at talking to people. You know what I mean? So I just broke the ice a little bit, and when I got up the hill and spoke to the lady, at the end of the conversation, she was in tears. Because she was saying, finally, somebody who is young and interested in the future of the country and not the future of their bank book. And that will stay with me. And many of the interactions that I had with people, especially the elderly people, those will stay with me. I learned so much about my constituency. I mean, I thought I knew my constituency inside out until I did walkabouts and learned so much more. It's just a beautiful experience to be here. And I'm very thankful to the Progressive Empowerment Party for allowing me to be here.
And we're thankful to have you on board. And just because you're coming off camera a little bit, I need you to turn your camera a little bit in the same direction.
Again.
Yes, a little bit. In the same direction you were still in it. No, next way. A little bit more. Perfect. Stop.
All right.
Nice. So you're nice and centered right now. So let's go back to the issues. Rondell, you were telling me about some of the issues within your community, and you seem to list many, several of which we have found to be common across all 41 constituencies in Trinidad and Tobago. But if you can fix one major issue in LeBray, should you have the chance of being the member of parliament for the constituency of LeBray, what is one of the first major things that you would tackle within your area?
Right. So the first thing I would remember, we were talking about how roads facilitate trade. There's a
Mhm.
program that I had in mind. There's a program that I had in mind, one that had existed and was defunct, and it doesn't make any sense why. So let me tell you how it works, right? We have in our country the highest grade of road building material on planet Earth. It's called TLA. Have you ever heard about TLA?
Edify me.
TLA. When you pave with TLA, it looks like glass, right? It it you can get a reflection from it. It looks like black glass. It's beautiful. TLA actually stands for Trinidad Lake Asphalt. Now, what we used to do,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, what we used to do a long time was, I think what old people just call beating in the pitch. What we used to do was, we used to grade the solid asphalt as is, which again is a rare thing. We would grade that solid asphalt and put it in the potholes and sinks and depressions. And guys would come with sledgehammers and beat it in. A steamroller would pass and it would be smooth and glassy and nice. They have no problem. We have TLA here. This is the home of it. So that is how we used to maintain the road long time. Now, yeah, what we doing? We hiring people, contractors that coming from Ohio who don't know anything about our roads and how to maintain them. When they build the road, it didn't last them for 2 years, but still they get the contract again to pave it again in the same stupid way. Not knowing what they're supposed to do is grade up the TLA, sprinkle it here and there, it's like magic. And you roll that in and you beat it in and you're on. And those roads actually need less maintenance. So one of the plans I had, now I've written actually 2,000 plans specifically for Library, right? I hope that I have the opportunity, at least, even if it's to be the fire under the foot of the person that they choose, I hope that I have the opportunity to pass these things on. One of my intentions was to table a program whereby all them youth men who sit down at the side of the road, who are unemployed, who tell themselves, life curse them, because number one, they had to put library on the resume. Number two, to close down all the trade schools and things. So where they're supposed to go to get educated, that go out of the constituency, but they don't even have a little 50 cents in the pocket to reach there. I remember I told you this constituency is large. You could live all your life in one part of the constituency and never see the other part of the constituency. It's that large. So what I'm saying is, one of the plans, one of my intentions was to build a program, an entry level program, to get these youth employed in that program to do general road rehabilitation. It would be a certificate program. And at the end of 3 years, they would have 3 years work experience doing something that is actually specific to road construction. Of course, there would have to be some theory every other weekend or whatever. We could work out the plans of that. But at the end, we would market every 3 years. We would have an elite road building team to market to the Caribbean and the wider world. Because remember, we produce the best pitch on planet Earth. And then we produce the people that know how best to use it. So that perhaps if it's the only thing I get to change, it would have been that.
That is actually a very it's a great aspiration when you consider just how terrible our roads are in Trinidad. I love driving, Rondell. I love taking drives all across Trinidad and Tobago, letting my glass down, letting the natural breeze flow in. What I hate, absolutely hate, is driving on the roads in Trinidad and Tobago. It can turn what is supposed to be a nice, relaxing, calming drive throughout your country into a painful, because at the end of it, your back is hurting, your joints are stiff, you just irritated because your car has gone through so many potholes, you bust your tire, you bend your rims, all kind of madness. And it is, when you said TLE, it's first it didn't click because it's so, I would say, so hidden, so forgotten, so left behind. Our Trinidad Lake asphalt, that place, that glorious black gold, they used to call it when
Yeah.
Christopher Columbus rediscovered Trinidad and Tobago. They called it black gold. That that is used to pave roads in countries all over the world. It's rumored.
Mhm.
Yet right here on the road leading up to the Trinidad Lake asphalt is probably one of the worst roads that we would ever experience. And like I say, I think that is a great plan. The fact that we have such terrible roads yet have the pitch lake in our backyard is something that continues to perplex me. And the idea that we could take what we have right there in our backyard, use it, monetize it, and export it to wider Trinidad and Tobago and the world, I think is a great goal to have, and
Well,
particularly as it pertains to providing and creating employment within your community.
now, may I? This PNM administration is possibly, look, they removed the tax from importing pitch and bitumen. So now it's cheaper for contractors to import pitch and bitumen. So the road that they drive on now is not our pitch, okay? And
Or
they've
question, or
actually,
is it?
yeah,
Or is it that we're
you
selling
know,
our pitch to people and then buying it? I don't know
and then
because I
bye.
have to question.
Well, let me tell you, I can tell you that our TLA sells, I mean, it's the most expensive road building product you could find. So it's highly unlikely. However, I can tell you this, because they've removed that tax from importing pitch and bitumen, you know, the big road pavers, they don't buy it locally anymore. And just a few months ago, I was championing an issue that the workers had. There was a kind of a rumor going around that they're going to close Lake Asphalt. So I caught up with the CEO, who was who was the Auditor General for for Lake Asphalt, and the man telling me, the man saying to me, he said, the truth about this entire thing is that if we don't find a new supplier immediately, we are going to have to fold. We are going to have to close down. Lake Asphalt will have to close down because nobody not buying the pitch. So if you don't have somebody to buy the pitch, I mean, you had to close them. You had to send all these people home. And that's all they've been doing to us in the South, closing the lifeblood, the economic lifeblood of our communities.
But Rondell, I mean, that seems to be the trend in agriculture as well. There are things that you can import from abroad that you can get here locally, and you can import it much cheaper than you can
Insanity.
purchase here. Again, seemingly to
Insanity.
force local food producers, the local farmers, out of business. But I mean, agriculture is another topic for another time. I know, Rondell, you had some videos that you wanted to show us this morning. I just asked the producer to prepare those videos, and let's before we run the first one, just whichever one you want to start with, just give me some context before we play that for the audience to see.
Okay, so coming up on a year ago, I was at the but what was it? The conversations with the Prime Minister. Remember that? when he had the conversations with the Prime Minister, and he went, um, my honorable Prime Minister, he went area to area having conversations with people. I remember.
Now that's
I was
giving
there.
us a few questions. Yes, I remember.
And so I went and I wanted to understand what was taking place, because how could you, as Prime Minister, use your prime ministerly power to have what seemed to be a PNM rally? I don't understand that. How are you the prime minister? And I mean, when I get there, is only people in a sort of PNM attire. I mean, the secondary school that I went to was littered with a bunch of Balize tie up all over the place. And when I got there, the people who actually from the constituencies surrounding Point Fortin were outside. They were made to stand outside when he bust in his supporters from Yoho to sit up front to clap at everything he said. So I wanted to burst that bubble, because I couldn't believe that somebody would have the audacity to do something to that degree and still be able to get away with it with members of the media present. How could the media stand idly by and see something like this being committed, this utter injustice? So I made a video.
All right, so let's see that video clip right now. Satish, if you can put that up for the audience to see.
Right, so the people who actually from Point. Good night, good night, good night, good night.
Welcome to the Prime Minister, and as he enters at this most opportune moment, I can begin to say what under his stewardship we did to stabilize this country. So as I was saying, when we came in 2015, we met a crisis in the gas.
So the people who actually from Point outside there speaking the truth.
The amount of gas we needed to the Point Lisas industrial estate and to the petchem sector. When we asked the UNC what was going on, what was curtailment, what was the shortage of gas about, you know what they told us?
And there
So
we
what
go again.
what we saw inside were the Boston supporters you're saying, and the real residents were actually ones outside, and they did not let them inside the meeting.
No. In fact, the police were there. I'm not sure if I send that clip as well. The police were there, and the police actually took one of the guys away. Well, they were trying to. They were trying to, until I had to remind them that one of our constitutional rights is the fact that we are allowed to have freedom of political expression. You know, and I was just there like the people's lawyer, all up in the place. You know what I'm saying? But it's not even about that. It's about doing the right thing. And I mean, I was in a situation where, I mean, it had about 10 police there telling people, hush, all you move, all you go from here, all you come here for, all this troublemaker. I don't think that the police at that time understood their duty and role. And again, I was very disheartened to see that taking place. I mean, you cannot use, I'm not saying that is what happened, but I'm saying you cannot use the powers of the state to your political gain. What is wrong with you? It's insanity.
So it was supposed to be a meeting with the Prime Minister, which clearly comes across like a PNM rally, where the people who were supposed to actually meet the Prime Minister, as in the residents of Point Fortin Labre, were the ones who were supposed to be inside the meeting, and they were the ones excluded from the meeting.
Exactly.
Democracy at work democracy at work for you people. Rhonda, I mean, I think that video and your explanation pretty self-explanatory. I do want to go into another video clip that you did. This was a very recently, and it seemed to be, I don't want to say a continuation, but it seemed to me a disheartened or ex PNM supporter. I don't know if you want to give us some context on the video before we show that for the public to see.
So what happened was I have been working this constituency since last year, right? And I got a late large, you know. And I've been in pockets in my constituency. There are places in my constituency that, so far away, it more or less self-enclosed. And there's a part of the constituency that I visited. And after having, visited them, during the whole COVID debacle, members of that community have been calling for assistance in many different ways. And what happened was somebody called and was asking for a particular type of assistance. And I came there with that assistance the next day. And he was impressed. In fact, he was saying that he had called the member of parliament, he had called 3 councillors, he had called everybody that he knew to call, and he got no assistance. He got promises that just never materialized. And I was just the last person that he had in mind that he could call. And he was saying, he was really emotional about it. Because he was saying, I called you yesterday, and you come today, and you're not in office. So that's just a little excerpt of what happened. That video was very, very short and compact. That was a whole long tralala. But I guess the audience can have a little view of it and make their own personal assessment and assessment.
Indeed. Let's see that clip now.
Mr. Bump he told us that he have nothing for us in the back here, we have to help ourselves. Mr. Tapper is the man in control of the secret gangs around here. Right? I don't know his name, personal, his correct name, but when we call him right after we speak to Bump, he told us that Bump coming tomorrow. He was supposed to come today, but he's coming tomorrow. Really that day. We feel a little more happy. We say, well, yeah, you girl, I'm fine, everybody started smiling. Bump came here Thursday with Namalco and Tapper, and they give to everybody else but in the back here. And when you turn around and see the houses, how much houses stand in the back here, so they will see that it have people living in the back here. Right? How much children we have in the back here, right? Look at it. Okay? And today my people, back to me. Today my people, these nice generous people here, we give them one phone call, and they are here today to help us. They are here today to help us. Where's the MP for this village here? Where are they? To help us. There is no way we could see them. Look all around. If you come around, turn around and show, you'll not see our MP here today. What's the last time you seen Nicola? I don't even know who Nicola Rivera. I never even see she even have a picture. Look at this. Right? That's Trinidadians, right? Trinidadians, right? I born and go in Trinidad. Me born in Guyana. Me born in Venezuela or whatsoever.
You have an ID card in Trinidad.
I have an ID card for here, so yeah.
And you have a polling card here when it's
right?
time to vote. That's all?
Lovely.
Right.
So they can find you when it's time for you to vote. Understand? But they can't find you when you're on that street. So they can find you when it's time for you to vote. Understand? But they can't find you when you're on that street. This is the document here. Look at pages. Right? So if a hustler can't read and write, he cannot get nothing. Right? Because hence the reason that they don't want to give us nothing. That is just it. Well, look, everything is for the people, for them people, for PNM alone. Not for the people who supporting PNM, for PNM alone. You know what I'm talking about when I say PNM alone, right? For the bigger heads, not for the smaller heads. We is just the foot soldiers to walk behind them. You understand? And lick the rear end.
All the grassroots that they have using.
I want to keep our Thanksgiving
You know what the Thanksgiving I want to keep? I can pick some grass down so, and I can put a table and fill it up with grass. And I go in the pond and follow water, right? And I can call everybody and tell them I rail back the shit out. And when they come, I can tell them, start to graze. And they start to graze. So that's what we have.
Look, we have this here now.
Well, alright. We have this here now. Thank God for these people and them. And I want you, I want to take up it.
I don't think that could have been that could have come across any better if it was planned or staged. I mean, I hope you got that man his jersey, Rondell, and if he hasn't gotten it yet, I will personally sponsor him a jersey on behalf of leadership and the membership of the Progressive Empowerment Party. But from his words to our ears, I mean, he could not have said it any better. And I experience it here in my constituency, Port of Spain, North and West as well. They know you when it's time for elections. They know you when it's time to walk behind them and take notes while they come and they knock on your doors and they kiss you and they hug your babies and all of these things. But when you really need them the most, where are they? Again, in his words, I cannot say it any better.
But did you see? You see, what you saw in that video is something that you will never see in Port of Spain. You saw a pumping jack. And I think you saw it and you didn't even notice that you saw it. You saw that?
The what?
There's a pumping jack there.
What is that? A pumping jack?
So what has happened is all of the oil and the well, not too much the gas, but all of the oil leave from here and go up north. And all the oil dollars leave from here and go up north. And that's how it's been. You see, you don't have to wake up in the night to a siren blaring that is basically telling you to run for your life. But many communities in and around here, this is what we know. Sometimes you hear a sound, if you live in Point, 14, and you hear a continuous audible alarm, brother, run. Because we are talking about an explosion to the degree that your mind cannot fathom. We live in and around oil and gas, right next to these people's houses, where these children play, where some people is hang the clothes, is a pumping jack for oil. I want you to understand what I'm saying. These people basically living on an oil well, liquid gold, and the degree of, I don't know how to put it across again, is abject squalor. How you can tell me you're living in a little 10 by 10 in an oil-rich country? How could it be that you so want to take yourself away from the realities that exist? That every Friday you find yourself by a bar, or you want to three pull a weed, or I mean, you don't understand. These are social ills that are caused by external pressures. Imagine, all you know is frustration. All you know is when nature calls, you have to go outside in a little galvanized hut and sit down and squat and hold your breath. Imagine a wet fly land on you and you don't know what the fly wet with and you don't even want to know. And when you have to go out the road by a pond, you hear what you say, by the pond, to dip water in an oil-rich country. All of this is what aggravates me and what builds and drives and motivates me. And this is why I talk in the way that I do. And this is why I act in the way that I do. Because there's so much frustration. And you see, this is why I came and I joined the Progressive Empowerment Party. Because the Progressive Empowerment Party, for me, represents an amalgamation of all the stress, all the pain, all the sorrows, all the woes, all the cries, and all the hopes of something better, a better country. I don't want to know my house big and your house small. I don't want to know my road paved and by you flooding every year. I want to know that I live in a country that I'm proud of. And I could go anywhere in the world and say I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. That is what I'm talking about. That's what we want. We want we want everybody to grow together. We want everybody to experience life in the best way. How to say it, living the best life? I want to see everybody live their best life. And that is why I am here. A part of the foundation of that, the Progressive Empowerment Party and their policies, I see them fixing all of the madness, all of the sorrow that we have to endure. And this is why I'm here. This
Well,
has not been a
Rondell, you
paid.
no, you listen, sir. I don't know if you probably took a sneak peek of my list of questions, but my last question for you on this program was actually to tell for you to tell me in your own words, why do you think the PEP, the Progressive Empowerment Party, is the best political vehicle right now in Trinidad and Tobago, and why are you a member of the PEP? I think you just answered that. If there's anything you would like to add to it, please feel free.
Of course I would. Of course I would. Policy number one, housing. I mean, when you grow up only being exposed to one thing, it's a little natural to be kind of uncomfortable when you see something new, and it's a bit natural to be afraid of what you don't know. And I mean, I keep that in mind and bear that in mind. I'm gonna walk about now. Let me tell you something. Policy number one spoke to me because I didn't understand how we could fix this thing that we just tried to do. This HGC is a thing that we just tried to do. You know, I can't understand how you have 200,000 people on a waiting list, and then you're talking about you're going to be a random draw. How could it be a random draw? I'm waiting 38 years now, and what? And I see solutions. How could you have an argument with policy number 5? How could you not see the foresight in policy number 17, which they took on the butchered? But what I'm saying is, what we could do here is so great and so impactful on everybody on a large scale. I I have to commit to the mission, regardless of what may, come who may. I have to commit to this mission because the policies is what bought me, and the policies is what have me here.
Very well said, Rondell. And we are just rounding out the last few minutes before the 9 o'clock hour. And anything you would like to say in your closing remarks before we go to a break?
Certainly, just two things. Number one, there's an issue. I just want to use this platform to kind of highlight it. There's an issue inside Mora, and if there's anybody with any weight who is seeing me right now on this video, understand something. All I need to do a lot better, and I comment in all your tail. Understand? It's 38 years now this road in there paved. Me and the contractor had a nice little discussion to organize something, and then it looked as though you want to go back on your word. We go fix that. We go fix that. It's a pen and paper. It's our ways to do things. Don't come in library and think that you can get away with nonsense. That's one. Next thing is, thank you so much for having me here. I mean, I should have been here a long time ago, and all of it is my fault, with my very, very busy schedule. I mean, I need to fix that. I need to adjust that. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your questions. And thank you for allowing me to be part of this great initiative.
And thank you very much, Rondell, for making the time to be here. I know you said that this is important to you. So the fact that you're here this morning and making the time not just for this program, but to speak to the residents of La Brea directly, because there are residents from La Brea who are on the live, who are watching this right now and are scoping out and listening to everything that you are presenting as representation for their constituency. Even now, as just the caretaker, you're still doing so much. According to that guy who took off his jersey and said he wanted a new jersey, you are doing more than his current MP is doing right now. So should you really be the representative for the Progressive Empowerment Party? I think the nation and the community of Labrie has a lot of passion and drive to look forward to coming out of Urundale. And I do thank you so very much for being on the program this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that was our interview with Rondell Glasgow. We are now going to go to a quick commercial break and come back with international journalists to discuss some international issues. We don't normally discuss much international news on this program, but sometimes that international news impacts us here in Trinidad and Tobago and what we do. We will be back after this quick commercial break with Reagan Devine, international journalist and well-known and well-respected media personality, to discuss the Black Lives Movement, the genesis, and how it's going to impact not just the globe but us here right in Trinidad and Tobago. We will be right back.
Antel is Trinidad's most reliable and technically experienced ICT company, providers of quality structured cabling, Cat6 data fiber and power cables. We also stock cabling infrastructure basket-type cable trays for server rooms and data centers. Antel also installs and maintains video security systems including cameras, alarms and electronic entrance locks for businesses and residential properties. Call Antel 674-1406 or 783-9250.
Science says that countries that have the greatest number of home ownership among families have the lowest levels of crime. Trinidad and Tobago has massive poverty, runaway crime, and an economy that makes no sense to anyone looking in from outside. We also suffer from the impact of corruption and narco-trafficking dollars being hidden in real estate, driving the prices up and drying up the supply. Banking in Trinidad and Tobago, unregulated, our mortgage system creates a scenario where the average house, the average home, by the time it is fully paid off, would have cost the homeowner twice and more the value initially paid. The government can impact home ownership, redevelop the family, end crime, and take Trinidad and Tobago to first world status simply by securing the nation's borders to end the drug trade, and stuffing the containers on the port again to end the drug trade, to create a property tax system that calls for 0% tax on primary dwellings, a 5% tax on secondary homes, a 10% tax on third homes, 15% on fourth homes, and escalating until by the 10th house that you own is so onerous in taxes to keep that you have no choice but to sell it or pay full value of that house to the state every year. We need to do this to drive corruption dollars and drug dollars out of real estate and bring the prices back in reach with the average income, the average wage, the average salary. Trinbagonians do not get full value for their money, and that is a conversation we have to have. But when we're talking housing, to get the average person into their own home, it is a right and a privilege of the state to be able to offer to these people zero deposit, zero interest for up to 30 years on up to homes valued up to $1.5 million. This would reduce the mortgage payments to about $500 per $100,000. And if we remove the duties and the VATs and all of the taxes on all of the building materials and open the market to competition to drive the prices down, the cost of building the average 1,200 square foot starter home will not exceed $100,000. And with $500 a month as a mortgage payment, even minimum wage earners would be able to afford their own home. The numbers say that in countries where families own their own homes, crime is at its lowest. The Progressive Empowerment Party is very sure In fact, we're certain that of all the policies that we build our 21 policies on, home ownership is the most important of all the important ones. We propose zero deposit, zero interest for up to 30 years on homes up to $1.5 million. Normal bank lending criteria apply. In Trinidad and Tobago, no one policy has the greatest opportunity to impact upon the development of the society like home ownership. The Progressive Empowerment Party promises to make home ownership for all a central pillar in all of our economic development. I am Philip Edward Alexander, and this has been 3 Minutes to a Better Trinidad and Tobago.
And we are back from that quick break, and we are supposed to be joined by Reagan Devines, who I am being told is having some difficulty logging onto the program. So in the meantime, I am going to open the phone lines for your calls if you would like to call in and talk your talk. If not, please expect that this program might just wrap up abruptly because Reagan was scheduled to be here for the last hour of this program, and unless you and I are having a one-on-one discussion, there's nothing really else carded for the program today. We did have a very informative and I would say eye-opening interview with caretaker for Labray, Rhonda Glasgow, who we finally got on this program. His work schedule conflicts with the show, but he managed to make some time to come on the show with us this morning. If you would like to call in and talk your talk, the number is 769-4590. I'd like to read this comment that I just got on my WhatsApp, because while I'm on this program, I get messages from people who are watching, maybe not so interested in calling in, but do want to voice and share their opinions with me to read out on the live. Satish, I know you're trying to reach Reagan. Please call him on Facebook. That's how I communicate with him. It's how I called him this morning to see if you can solve whatever technical issues you're having with bringing him on the program. So one of the messages, a message that I got this morning, is to go meet people's problems after 65 years. Build this up on Pep Talks in the morning. Use talk caretakers with a phone going live. Get in the field now. And I love that idea. I love that suggestion, actually. And I would like to actually get involved in that. I would definitely love to hit the field, hit the ground with Pep Talks in the morning. Like I mentioned earlier on the interview with Rondell, during this time leading up to elections, you would be seeing more interviews with caretakers, more people coming on board on the show to talk about the issues in their constituency, talk about the work that they are doing on the ground in their constituency. And I have no problem, absolutely none. Actually, I think that is a nice way to liven up the show, to take my camera, take my phone on the walkabouts, on the tours, on the ground to see the actual issues facing the constituencies right now. Actually, right here on my street, and for the 5th or 6th day since it has happened, there is a leak, and a major leak of water. Just whether there's water in my taps or not, this water is running down the hill because I live on a hill. And who do you call? Your MP, your councillor, to report an issue that has been plaguing the community for this long. And we're in a period of dry weather, or so they say. We're in a period where you're not supposed to be wasting water. Something as simple as watering your plants could land you a charge under the act that was implemented back in 2019. I believe it was January 2019 that told us that we aren't supposed to be wasting water, that we aren't supposed to be send we're not supposed to be basically living, and I say living because I can't believe that during at a period like this, and when I say at a period like this, I can't believe that it's 2020 and we have restrictions on water usage, whereas we have water wasting in so many parts of Trinidad and Tobago. Like I see right here on my street, whether I have water in my taps or not, water is wasting. And who do you call? Who do you complain to? A problem that the PNM is saying that they need another 5 years to fix. And I am wondering what they did with the first 5 years they had in office. I'm trying to reach Regan Devines on the phone right now. So if I seem a little bit distracted, I'm trying to multitask, do this program, and reach out to my guest at the same time. Let's see if we can get him on the phone. I didn't get him on the phone, but it seems like I got him on the live video. Good morning, Mr. Regan Devines.
Hi. Um. My laptop is the slowest on the planet. So my if you're hearing me, my it's unfrozen again. Oof.
I'm hearing you, and I'm hearing you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you now.
Amazing, because you had me ad-libbing the rest of the program, and I'm like, what am I going to tell these people? I have nothing prepared because I have a whole interview planned with you. I was just about to tell them, Trinidad and Tobago, I will see you again tomorrow.
I'm sorry for scaring you, but yeah, I should have taken Satish's advice and logged on earlier because I didn't anticipate these problems at all.
You see, listen to Pep Media, the head of Pep Media. He knows what he's talking about when he tell you the time to log on. But I am glad that you are finally here with me. And to all the people who may have been leaving the live because you saw that Felicia was just talking to herself, please share the live video. Again, we are going to enter into a very interesting discussion with Mr. Regan Devines, I would say, Regan, how do I know you? We were first Facebook friends, right? I've never actually met you in person, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. But I have
No,
no idea
yeah.
when we even became Facebook friends.
Me either. I think it was somewhere back in the early days. Maybe I was Facebook stalking you. I have no idea. But I have been following your progress from the days that you did Drive. I'm saying that right? Drive? Yeah. Are you frozen or am I frozen? You are frozen. Seems like you are frozen. But I have been following Regan since the days of Drive, and now he is. Are you still in Istanbul, Turkey? All right, so while we sort through these technical difficulties, I would explain why Regan is on the program today. Regan, who is a news anchor. Hello?
Oh, are you back there?
Yes, I'm back.
Yes.
You seem to be back as well.
Were you hearing me the entire time?
No, I was not. I'm hearing you now.
Okay. Yes.
All right. So I was just telling the audience who you were. Regan is a news anchor and senior producer for TRT World. Are you still in Istanbul, Turkey?
Yes, we are trapped here until the restrictions are eased.
Indeed. And what is the likelihood of that happening anytime soon? How is it? Well, what is the coronavirus status right now in Turkey?
We are within the top 10 in terms of the number of cases. And it's understandable because Istanbul is a mega tourism destination. But we have a very low death toll. I think it's less than 5,000 last I checked. I mean, any death is sad, but we have not been hit as hard as European countries like like Italy and Spain, for example, and definitely not like the UK. So it does look like it's improving here, and this past weekend was the first weekend in about 2 months that we did not have a curfew. So the restrictions are being eased and people are being let out bit by bit, except people who are in high risk groups.
So are the borders in Turkey closed right now?
Yes, no one can come in from countries that have high incidence and death rates. Um, and if you leave Istanbul and come back, you'll be subject to like a 2-week quarantine.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to the issue that I actually brought you onto the program for. Reagan was supposed to be on the program last week, Tuesday, to discuss the series of events that have transpired or that was sparked from the George Floyd incident. It's been a week and since he was supposed to come on, and I'm assuming much has developed. Last week, Tuesday, would have been the 7th day of protest. Reagan, in your capacity as a news anchor, are these protests still happening that you know of?
Yes, they still are. This past weekend, we saw the protests in the US spread into European cities. It was amazing. Places like Vienna in Austria. In Austria, we saw lots of people in Berlin. We saw obviously people in London and even as far as Australia and Sydney. So it's obvious that what's happening in the US is something that's on many people's mind across the world, and understandably so. Um, People on the continent of Africa and the diaspora out of it constantly live in a state of repression. We're always subject to authority that is not necessarily looking out for our best interest. And so protesters are demanding that systemic racism of that kind come to an end immediately. Obviously, the protests they're being sparked by the deaths of people of color, which is sad. So it takes someone dying, which apparently in the US, a black person dies every, what is it? The statistic was every 40 hours, a black person dies at the hands of police. Those statistics are frustrating because people know what the problems are. A lot of people have solutions for them, but as is the case in almost every country in the world, solving the problem takes a political will that is, for the most part, absent. And we see that it's absent when it comes to the Trump administration, even though there is legislation being debated currently on within the states and on a federal level when it comes to regulating how the police interact with people of color and ethnic minorities. And of course, in the Senate, trying to amend the anti-lynching bill, which will expand this bill to include whether people of color suffer minor injuries, because before the suffer injury to have force against some group of people who've attacked you in a link. And so, from the last I heard, legislation is being held by someone who thinks expanding it that much could be problematic in the future. And so, I mean, I'm sure when you saw the video as well, Felicia, of this police officer with his hands in his pockets, you could even hear him whistling in his head and his knee on George's neck. It was astounding how unperturbed he was that there was a camera on him that was streaming live online. It is fascinating. It just shows you how valuable the lives of people of color are in the United States. And it is an issue that is obviously quite significant today, and it has been for centuries, and particularly since the abolition of slavery more than 150 years ago.
Indeed. And I mean, 2020 has seemed like a very strange year when you consider we are in the middle of a quote unquote zombie apocalypse with this COVID-19. And now it seems to have morphed, and the Black Lives Movement, it seems to have taken precedence. I mean, right here in Trinidad and Tobago yesterday, we had a standoff between people from the Black Lives Matter movement who were protesting outside of the embassy with police. There was a standoff as they were upset that the police were actually recording them, and that transpired right. I was actually reading that article right before we came onto this program today. The world, I mean, it's a strange year, but particularly with this incident that we're talking about here, the deaths of people with color. I mean, we've seen it happening. It was not just George Floyd. There were so many people in recent history who have been killed in ways that seem very inhumane, that did not seem to follow police code. The world itself seems to be reaching a boiling point. I don't know if you feel that as well. There seems to be something in the air, and the last time that I've seen something like this was probably with the civil rights movement a couple decades ago. As a human being, as a journalist, how do you feel about everything that is happening right now as it pertains to this Black Lives Movement in the United States, which has now spread across the world? I mean, right here in Trinidad and Tobago, we're experiencing it as well. How do you feel about this?
Well, you know, just recently, Breonna Taylor in the States died, and Ahmaud Arbery died as well at the hands of police. But I think during this specific time, under the coronavirus lockdown, people having lost their jobs, unemployment rising, poverty obviously tied to all of that, the injustices that Black people face, not just in the United States, is taking center stage right now, particularly and of course exacerbated, as I said, by the virus. People are feeling it more than ever that they are not a part of a national recovery process. For example, in the States, unemployment rose significantly more for people of color than it did for white people under the lockdown. And so people are rehiring as well, even more white people than they are people of color. And it shoves into light once more that there is a hierarchy when it comes to race in the US and across the globe. We feel it in Trinidad as well, obviously. There is this hierarchy that just seems to be unflinching. No matter what we do, no matter how often we protest, no matter how many people die, it just seems as though nothing is doing much to alleviate the concerns that people of color have, which is that their lives are important. They want opportunities. I mean, for example, Felicia, I've grown up in Trinidad all my life. I've never been to the States, but a lot of my family is there. The first time I experienced overt racism was last year, 2019, when I had taken some clothes of mine. It was it was about autumn. Yeah, it was autumn, just before winter. It was winter, actually. Winter had already begun last December. I had taken some clothes of mine and the clothes of some of my friends, to some refugees in northern Bosnia. Bosnia is obviously predominantly white. There are no native Indians or anyone native that is of color. And I remember going there, driving there with another journalist. We checked into a hotel, no problem. The next morning, we got up. He is Bosnian and he's white. So we got up the next morning and we went to a restaurant, walked in to try to have breakfast, nonchalantly, not expecting that the attendant at the cashier started yelling at me, saying, "You can't come in here." Yelling at the top of her lungs with patrons on either side seated having breakfast. And obviously got their attention. They looked across at what the drama was about. This woman was yelling at me in Bosnian, so I didn't understand what she said. My colleague had to say that she's saying that you're not allowed to eat here. You're not allowed to eat here. So I asked why. He asked her why. She didn't want to answer why specifically, but she said, he can't come in here. He's not allowed to eat in this establishment. And sad to say, and I always look back at that moment and regret my immediate reaction. My immediate reaction was to apologize, Felicia, for coming to an establishment. I felt as though I had to apologize. And we walked out of there. I said, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. We walked out of that. And I realized later on that I had no idea how to respond. I was in a state of shock because it never happened before. And so looking back at it, it was clearly an instance of racism. Just because of the color of my skin, people there assumed that I was a refugee from wherever, I'm not sure. And which shows you that some establishments in some countries are not serving people of color, specifically refugees in that instance. And there's nothing that can be done per se. Apparently in the city, it's called Bihać. Apparently in the city, it's not allowed, but private companies can do what they want because the overwhelming fact is that people of color have little recourse. How am I going to prove that they didn't let me eat in there? All the owner has to do is like say, no, we never said that you can't eat in here, and that'll be the end of it. So a lot is not being done. A lot more needs to be done when it comes to legislation and actual law that prosecute people who discriminate against people of color, but more pertinently, breaking down the system of racism that sees people of color not get better access to healthcare, not get access to top jobs, forced to live in low-income neighborhoods, forced out of high-income neighborhoods that are white majority. This is still happening today all across the world. And so as a journalist covering this, it is exceedingly frustrating because you have to cover the facts, but you can't, well, the rules of journalism say that you can't inject your personal view in this. But I'm a person of color. I can't help but do that in my questioning, in how I ask my questions, and I can't hide my cynical responses when I hear someone say I don't see color, or try to explain their privilege when you can see that people who benefit from a place of privilege, what benefits them to dismantle that system? Does it benefit them? So when a white person says, yes, I know I'm privileged, it's just rhetoric. They're rolling off their tongues for the most part that I've seen. I don't think people truly understand what that means. It's frustrating covering this, Felicia, and even more so during the pandemic because people are dying from the coronavirus. And all of our attention should be focused on the people who need help. But at the same time, I'm happy that these protests have been sparked during this time, because people of color, once again, particularly Black people, are at higher risk of contracting and dying from the virus than with their white counterparts.
Indeed. And Reagan, one thing I have noticed, and I have to say I am happy to see, and I don't, how should I put this? I don't know if this is out of guilt or maybe just a feeling of empathy. I have noticed that a lot of people, non-colored people, white people, Hispanic people, when you look at the cross section of people attending these protests, it's not just colored people. It's people who believe that people are people regardless of the color of your skin, creed, race, nationality, background, whether you're a refugee or immigrant or you're born here, that you should just be treated as a human being. And again, I brought in and we're talking international news a little bit, but everything that you just described there in terms of the advantages of people of color, and I using it in the local context, Afro-Trinbagonians, Black people, and I say that, I mean, I guess if somebody else say they might have a problem with it, but I don't see the real issue with it. I'm not using it in a condescending or pejorative way. But everything that you described there in terms of opportunities, lack of opportunities, where people of color live in places of squalor, or they get low paying jobs. I felt as if you were talking about Trinidad and Tobago, and I raised that issue about non-colored people championing and standing up in this Black Lives Movement race, because bringing it home again, one of the reasons why I support and I guess rally behind political leader Philip Alexander is he's not a Black person, and it's clear to anybody he's not. He's a half Syrian, half Lebanese man with quarter Black in him somewhere down the line. I saw his grandfather, he's Black, but yet still he has championed issues for Trinidad and Tobago, for Black Trinbagonians, that I have not even seen the blackest of the blackest, and Keith Rowley calls himself the blackest of the blackest. I haven't even seen him champion these causes. And yesterday I had an argument with somebody who doesn't mind or is very cognizant of the issues that Philip and the PEP raises as it pertains to Black people and the lack of opportunities and the way Black people are treated in this country. But his issue was that Philip was not Black. And his issue is that a white man, according to him, a white man shouldn't be speaking on behalf of Black people. So I asked him, but if the Black people aren't going to speak out on behalf of Black people, then who will? And I bring this issue back to Trinidad and Tobago because, Reagan, I look around my community, just my community here, Belmont East, which is housed in Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. And I look at the contrast between the middle class to upper middle class, which can be found closer to the Savannah side, and as you move higher up the hills, you see those in Upper Belmont, Upper St. Francis and Valley Road, St. Francis Valley Road, Belmont Valley Road. You see the communities that they call the at-risk communities and the hotspot communities, and you ask yourself the question: how is it that this community that has been a Black PNM stronghold community, how is it that a community that has so much high levels of crime, high levels of poverty, how is it that we continue to live, or why is it that these communities continue to be this way despite having been ruled by a majority Black party? And when you say, we had an interview with a PNM ex-PNM minister who came onto a plain talk show. I have my pep talk show in the morning. There's a plain talk show that takes place in the night that Philip hosts. And he said it very blatantly. There are Black faces of the PNM party, but behind the Black faces of the PNM party, you see a lot of non-Black faces who actually run the party. And he said it very clearly: the financiers of the PNM, the financiers of both political parties, they look nothing like you, they sound nothing like you. So people often wonder, why is it that we are stuck in a place like this? It's because I don't think any of these parties that we've ever had has the interest of the Black population in mind. And I'm saying all of this to go down the line of saying there seems to be a global kind of interest in keeping Black people as laborers and consumers, and it even seems to be done by Black people to other Black people. Because like I say, I look at Belmont, I look at Laventille, I look at Covine, I look at Big Yard, I look at Cocorite, And I ask myself the question, why is it our communities continue to be like this? I look at gated communities that have been built to keep people like me out. Just like you were kept out of that restaurant, built to keep people like me out. Chances are if you're black and stopped in a roadblock, you would be treated much differently from somebody who is white or Syrian stopped in a roadblock. And there's a inherent racism in Trinidad and Tobago that I don't think we want to admit to. And it has not sparked the Black Lives Movement that I see happening yet in the United States. What we had yesterday was still just the tip of the iceberg, but we still have people when black men get incarcerated in Trinidad and Tobago, when black men get killed. We celebrate, we see another pest off the street, but nobody is really looking at the reasons why these black communities are failing, the reasons why these black communities are producing more murderers, more violence, more drugs, more crime than the other communities. And it's something that I wanted to raise because I have to bring it back home. I have to bring it back home in the light, just shedding light on the fact that we here, I think we experience our own levels of racism as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. When it comes to Trinidad and Tobago, I think what is the majority? Majority is of East Indian descent, and then secondly is of African descent. Is it? Is it still that how it is?
It is, the ratio is, I would say, borderline 50-50. There always seems in
Yeah.
the consensus, it always seems to be fluctuating, but it is more or less down the middle.
I think it's hard to judge what racism looks like in a place like Trinidad because the majority of the population is either black or brown. Even though I don't know, I won't even go into the I really hate using colors, but you know what I mean. Uh, and so when you talk about incarceration, the majority of the population is black and brown, which means the majority will likely be black and brown within prisons. So it's hard to judge how and why one group is incarcerated more than the next. But when it comes to poverty, um, I think there might be a study to be done in terms of how, per se, the banking sector gives loans to people of color. What is the ratios? What is the ratio of loans that are granted to people who are of Syrian descent versus people of East Indian descent, people versus people those of African descent? I know globally there is a general distrust of people of color by the banking sector. So it's harder for people of color to be granted loans to open up their own business specifically, although there quite often isn't a problem putting people of color into debt by giving them cars, etc. When it comes to opening businesses, helping people advance and create generational wealth, there are lots of structures in place to prevent that, especially when it comes to the banking sector. Um, but it is hard, as I said, to really hold TNT up as a case study as to exactly what racism there looks like. I know there is a lot of racism when it comes to relationships in Trinidad and Tobago. I've been getting a lot of stories over the past week of people saying, I don't want this black person in your life, or I don't want this East Asian person in your life to be part of the family because it will dilute our name and our color. I mean, in the year 2020, it is sad that we are still so segregated when it comes to something as simple as love. I consider Trinidad and Tobago quite progressive when it comes to many things, but still beneath the surface, there is a power struggle that is ongoing when it comes to color and class, which obviously are always intertwined, particularly class in Trinidad. Um, it's I don't know. It's so hard. I grew up in Trinidad. I don't think I've ever experienced racism before in Trinidad. I might have. I just probably didn't know what it looked like because we've been groomed to think that racism was mainly a thing that came from whites to blacks, you know. And so in Trinidad, my friends are of every race and color, and even though I've always considered people who are much fairer to be a bit more distant when it comes to integrating. Um, but other than the people who actually have power in Trinidad, as you were mentioning, the people behind the political parties, I think there is also a case to be made for exactly why they want the status quo to remain as is. As you mentioned, people in Belmont Hills, they make up the vast majority of the PNM's votership. And why do they remain in a state of poverty is a really good question to ask. And why, no matter which government that comes into power, it remains as is. And you were mentioning Philip before. I've always supported Philip on his idea that reform on how political parties are financed must happen. This is probably the one thing I support Philip on. If he has not changed those views, I support him so much on that. But I have to say that, when hearing someone like Philip talk about race, it's jarring to the ear. As a person of color, to me, it was jarring. Because although what he says may have elements of truth, how you say something is also quite important. And so I've never supported how Philip said things on social media, especially as it pertains to race. And so you mentioned Keith Rowley as well. I have no affiliation with the party, either them or the UNC. But I don't think that in Keith Rowley's mind, I can't obviously say what he thinks, but as a black person, I don't go around thinking, oh, I have to take care of black people. It's not at the top of my mind, even though it should be at the top of his as the Prime Minister, and that his constituents remain in the poverty for the most part.
But I have to interject there because you say that not the first time I've heard people say they don't like how Philip says things. No problem. Actually, I've had people who asked me the question. I have never heard a man who's not black speak on behalf of black people like this before, and in such a real raw way. So I think in this case, to each their own. But with Keith Rowley in particular, my reason for targeting him in particular, and not just him, but Patrick Manning before him, and Arthur Rayburn Robertson before him, and who was before him? Was it Eric Williams was before him, or was it George? I can't remember the history. I think it was Eric Williams before him. The reason why I'm raising these people because all black men, all men spearheading a majority political party in Trinidad and Tobago. The PNM is the only political party that has started off since 1962 and is still here to date. Yet, even after having been in power for the longest, even after having the majority of votes in the population in the past 4 elections, they still, when you look at their support base, when you look at the people who uphold and keep the PN and prop the PNM up, they are some of the people who are doing the worst in the country. You're saying that, yes, we are majority black and Indian. But let's look at those two races. Let's look at who fills up the jail cells versus who go on to receive prestige education. And yes, we are seeing a small balance with that now. But let's look at who twirls the baton for amalgamated security and who fries the fries in KFC, the majority of the labor and consumer population, let's look at the majority who works 10 days and CPAP and Europe. It is the majority is the black population. And my question is, why after having been in office for more than 40 years combined, more than 45 years combined, the Black Party that is supposed to supposedly represent the black interest, I mean, this is who they prop up or who they're being propped up by. Why is it that the black community does the worst? And I apparently can say this, but if Philip points it out and says it in a very raw way, people are offended rather than being offended by the fact that what he is saying is in fact true. Look at it right now. The proportion of a black, not the proportion, the actuality and the likelihood of a black person owning their own home ray gun is slim to none in this country. I was working in what was considered one of the best jobs as a communications specialist in a very well-paying oil and gas company, having more money than the deposit in my bank account, having recommendations that were stellar, having a high credit score, having a piece of property that I could afford to repay in the time that I was going to get the loan by and less, and still was denied the chance of owning my own home. However, when I went to apply for a carnival loan, just to see, when I went to apply for a car loan, they gave it to me easy squeezy, because the rates of interest that being paid back on that, they're very high. And at the end of it, what do I have to show for it? A car that is going to depreciate as soon as I drive off the lot, a carnival costume that is going to last me Monday and Tuesday and then collects dust in my cupboard after that. But the chance to own a stake in my own country, the chance to actually have a piece of property that I can pass on, to have a posterity that can gain interest and I could pass on to my children and my children's children, that aspect, it is almost impossible for me as a young black female woman working in a well-paying job to have. And I have heard stories, Reagan, of similar experiences like this. I have heard of people who have joint incomes who, because their last name is not the right last name, even though they're making enough money, they are refused and denied a loan, and they're being given stupid reasons like where the property is. And even though they have the collateral, even though they have the recommendations, and I have to ask the question, why is this? You don't see people of certain races walking into banks to apply for loans. They go to uncle and auntie and they can buy a house cash. The people like us who really need a stake in this country. And then worse yet, for the people who can't afford homes, Reagan, the people who have to rent for life because there's no such thing as working minimum wage and then taking that money and going and apply for a loan. Minimum wage, you're making just enough money, to barely cover your rent and buy a week's worth of groceries. And that is how a very high percentage of this population lives right now, not to mention those who cannot even dream of renting or owning. So they have to squat or live by an auntie or build up some room above somebody else's house. And I mean, that's for a country. I just had the caretaker for Labrie come on my show for the first hour, and everything he described that is happening in Labrie, it seems to be happening all throughout this country, and especially here in Belmont. You see where people who are living I live on the outskirts of Port of Spain, the capital city of this country. And when you look at the outskirts of Port of Spain and the way people live in Port of Spain, do you believe that there are people using latrines right now in the city of Port of Spain, Reagan? Can you believe that? Do you believe that in an oil-rich constituency as Labrie and Point Fortin, that there are people who living in shacks where 5 and 6 people sleeping in one room? And it is inconceivable to me that in a country that is so rich, that we have so many people, particularly black people, living in circumstances where after 45 years of voting Black Party in and out of office, this is their conditions, this is their circumstance, this for many people is all they can ever aspire to. 10 days CPAP, hopefully his son don't end up in jail because there's no opportunity within his community, so he end up selling drugs and he block. Like I said, look at the percentage, look at the population that makes up the prisons right now. It is mostly young black African men, and that's a reality that many in Trinidad and Tobago not ready to face yet.
Yeah, this is not just Trinidad. When you look at the outskirts of, say, India's capital, New Delhi, or the outskirts of South Africa's capital, Johannesburg, you just see slums full of hundreds of thousands of people who are quite often of a very dark complexion compared to the rest of the society, at least compared to the ones who have power. There is a concerted effort in place that's been ongoing for centuries to keep people, to keep some people, many people, in a position of debt. As you mentioned, it's very hard for someone of color to be given an opportunity to acquire wealth. Because there is this system. This is the system that people are determined to dismantle. It's systemic racism. It's systemic structural things in place that keep the status quo. Um, which is why these protests are important. And I applaud whoever protested in front of the U.S. Embassy you mentioned, because things just need to change, even bit by bit. But in terms of things changing, I know one thing that can help anyone get out of poverty is education. I think Trinidad made some great advances. When was it? I think in 2006, 7, 8 is when we started allowing people to go to university for free in Trinidad. That was massive. That started the process of lifting tens of thousands of people out of poverty. I was able to go and start school for free for the first time ever. Before, you had to have considerable money to do that. I don't know. I don't remember who was in power at the time, but whoever did that was doing the right thing. And I think education is still free in Trinidad. I'm not sure, but obviously
But
education
even that they corrupted
that is
though, and
a
I don't
big
even want
deal.
to go down that road.
But
But
still, that is a huge deal in lifting people out of poverty. You can't. I mean, it's hard for any government to address poverty. No one country, as far as I know, has all of the resources to. You can't just give money for free. You can't. You have to create a system in place where people can uplift themselves. You have to do it. One of the main ways of doing that is education. You can't just go around giving away houses. You can't go around giving away cars. That does nothing except make things hard in the long run. Um, but I think education is by far the most important move TNT has made in the past 2 decades or so, to lift poor people out of poverty. I don't know what the statistics are since that's happened, but surely, had that not happened, I would not be here. I wouldn't be here where I am right now. I don't need to go to an Ivy League school in the US or in the UK. I just needed another opportunity to get education where I could not afford one before, and that gave people the opportunity back in mid late 2000s. Um, so it is always hard to discuss race and poverty and what a government is doing to help and alleviate that. I know Trinidad has some programs in place to help people get businesses, small business loans per se. I don't know what the criteria is, but definitely when it comes to banks that are not state owned are entrenched in this system. They are engaged in it. They might be the leaders of it, of creating wealth for a minority and keeping the majority in a state of debt, constant generational debt, generation after generation. And that is the systemic um, absurdities that people are trying to dismantle.
indeed, and Regan, I would like to thank you for joining me on the program today because we're nearing the end. There was one question I wanted to ask you. The Trump administration has been criticized for their handling of the protests, and I know we deviated a little bit because I did want to introduce the Trinidad and Tobago aspect of this and, racism in our own country here. Many are having an issue with the looting part and the violence part of the protest. What are your thoughts on this particular aspect?
According to the majority of state governors, these people were either paid to come in from out of state to loot, or were just employed, were just encouraged by poverty, were pushed by poverty. It is not a weird thing to see people looting or trying to rob and steal when they are out of work. That is the nature of things of things like this. Poverty is one of the main pushers of crime. People will, for the most part, many people, not all, will commit crime to try to survive. The looting in the United States, it wasn't just people of color. There were white people looting. There were reported cases of members of the KKK looting and destroying businesses owned by black people. So there's a lot more to be investigated and discussed when it comes to the looting. But obviously there are bad apples everywhere. Maybe we should just talk more about white collar crime and why people get away with it at a lot higher rate than people of color get away with stuff. So the looting is not a huge. I know people have been pushing it, especially people who are not black, pushing you're not helping your cause by looting or this nonsense I've been seeing online. That's not the issue. The issue is that change has to happen. Bet your bottom dollar that had the looting not happened, the media would not have covered this how they've been covering this. I'm not advocating looting at all, but the how media works is that they gravitate toward violence, murder, death, destruction. It is a horrible system, but had they not done that, we would not be getting the coverage that we need to highlight the issues that persons of color face. There are few people who loot for that reason specifically, but there are many more people, according to state governors in the US, who are just looting for either because they're just being opportunistic or that they were employed to do so to create and to divert attention from the protests themselves.
Noted. And I would like to invite you on maybe sometime next week to see how this situation develops. Like you mentioned, it has gone global now, and I think it is the start of a movement that the world was not prepared for, but maybe it's the right time for it to happen. Like I said, I saw that it has begun in Trinidad and Tobago. To the extent that I would like it to be, maybe not so, but it is a start, and I hope to see it actually be a catalyst for the real change that we need in this country. And when I say change, I mean systematic change that has seen the black community and even the poor Indian communities suffer and I would say be kept down at the hands of a very small minority. Regan, thank you so much for joining us, and we will be in contact. Please enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe as always. Protect yourself. Don't go and wear a mask when you're going out, if that is something that you all are doing in Turkey. Yes?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Felicia. Nice seeing you as usual.
Oh, and it's Felicia. I was supposed to correct you on that. I'm very, very strict when it comes to my name. It's Felicia.
I agree. I'm fine with that. That's fine. Felicia, thanks so much.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. And there we had it. A full day of interviews. We had PEP caretaker Rhonda Glasgow for Labre. We just had concluded an interview with Regan Devines, a media personality and journalist who is currently stationed in Istanbul, Turkey. He's covering the events unfolding there as it pertains to the local events as well as the coronavirus as it is unfolding in the region of Turkey, the country of Turkey right now. There's something that he said though that I want to use to summarize the entire day of interview or the 2 hours we had of interviews, which is that change is imminent. Change it needs to happen, and I have to always bring it back home here to Trinidad and Tobago. He mentioned education and the fact that education was made free for the population, which was supposed to even out the opportunities. However, education it meant or means nothing if after you are educated for 3-4 years there's nowhere for you to go in terms of jobs. If nepotism continues where you have to know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody to get hired, many people right now are educated unemployed people. They have more degrees than a thermometer, because you can go into UE and study just about anything. And if you don't have the right connections post graduation, particularly within the last 5 years, in a country that has seen a loss of jobs in both the public and the private sector, which has seen a reduction in the oil and gas industry, which has seen a stagnation of progressive development in terms of new technology, new jobs. I mean, STEM technology, which has taken the world by storm. It is still something that we're just talking about here in Trinidad and Tobago. We can create all the free education we want, but until we actually open the doors and create real change in this country, real change, giving the people who give this free education, giving them the real opportunity to apply what they learn, then I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon. So it's 10 o'clock. We are out of time for today. I thoroughly enjoyed the interviews that brought both a local constituency perspective as well as an international perspective, but still managed to bring it back to Trinidad and Tobago. I really love the suggestion that I got of taking pep talks on the road. So definitely look out for something like that soon. I always welcome your suggestions. You can WhatsApp me, text me, call me on 769-4590 to give me your ideas. I thank you for sticking around with us today. We've come to the end. We will be back tomorrow again at 8 a.m. But until then, remember, let's stay together. Bye.